negative stereotype around entrepreneurship that I found, that people see it as, everyone always quotes, they always say it's something like 95% of startups fail or something like that. And everyone quotes that and they love it. And anytime someone spoke about an entrepreneurial venture, they're like, do you know most of these startups fail? If you exist at a 7 or a 6 out of 10, if you rate your life from 0 to 10 and you exist at a 6 or a 7, then the problem with existing at a 6 and a 7 is you're not willing to make any adjustments to your life because you're kind of there, right? Like you're almost at 10, but you're not quite there. Whereas, and the region-based paradox says that in order to go to a 9 or 10, you have to be willing to go to a 4 or 5. A large proportion of London is stuck at a 7, which is like, you know, they enjoy their life, they do things that they enjoy, but they're not deeply, deeply happy. And I just stopped talking to people in England about my business because I was so sick of having to defend what I was doing. The other thing that is people fear is that the reason that they don't take the criticism is because people want immediate gratification. So to be an entrepreneur, you have to work incredibly hard without any sort of reward.
Absolutely.
And that culture is just not like known in the UK, right? Entrepreneurship is such a good filter because it shows you who is going to be the people that are going to support you and who are going to be people that...
Hi everyone, and welcome to the One Way Ticket podcast. Today I'm joined by Sol, and we're going to talk about all things escaping the middle class trap and building a digital business. Let's dive in. Hi Sol, thank you so much for joining.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Happily. I'm Sol, currently living in Bali, and I run the Free Thinkers Club.
Amazing. So you haven't always lived in Bali, have you?
No.
Could you tell us about your life?
I wish I'd always lived in Bali. But...
Sometimes people that we live in Bali, we like to pretend we've always lived here. We haven't.
It feels like I've been here a long time, but I spent 6 months here like a year and a half ago. But I'm born and bred in the UK, have spent most of my life in the UK, but spending as little time there right now as I possibly can.
Amazing. Could you tell us about your life in the UK and what made you feel this way? Why do you live?
I can. I think I'm very open about my experience in the UK. I've got a lot of great friends and family there, but for me, I grew up in the UK. I went to university. I followed a very standard path of I was a rugby player. I did everything that a kind of middle class guy should be doing. And that included going to university, getting a graduate job that I was worked really hard to get. And basically got to the point where I was like, okay, I've smashed it. I've got a very well paid job after uni. And I was like, all right, I'm amazing. Life is great. And then to keep going with that, I then traveled and explored this world of Bali and realized that it was not what I wanted to do. And ever since then, I've been retracing my footsteps and growing in a different direction.
In a nutshell, amazing. I feel like when we are at university, they do make us feel like that's what success looks like. Mm-hmm. You finish university and you should be securing a job straight away and you've made it, you're successful. I do feel like that puts a lot of pressure onto people. What did success look like to you when you were at university? It
looked, the only option that I was given, and it wasn't, I don't negatively say, it's not like someone is like, we're going to just say no one should be entrepreneurs. Yeah. We should just do corporate. But the only option I ever considered was the option of, okay, obviously I'm going to go to London. Obviously I'm going to try and get a well-paid job. And obviously I'm going to pick one of the careers that has got amazing trajectory and leaves me earning a few £1 million when I'm a partner. That's like, to me, and most of the people I'm surrounded by, in fact, all of the people I was surrounded by, that was the option. That was where you go. That's what you do. And it was like, looking back at it now, it's crazy to think, but I think we both have had that same experience. And even your parents, like my parents, amazing, but they both are in that life. And therefore it's like, okay, let's just do that, right? That's all they know. Yeah. And partly the fact that there's the negative stereotype around entrepreneurship that I found, that people see it as everyone always quotes, they always say it's something like 95% of startups fail or something like that. And everyone quotes that and they love it. And anytime someone spoke about an entrepreneur or like entrepreneurial venture, like, do you know most of these startups fail? And God, if I'd listened to that advice, like
absolutely.
I'd be sat in an office in London right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. When in reality, when you have a job, like a regular 9 to 5 job, and you quit your job because you want to start your business, okay, your business doesn't succeed, what's the worst thing that can happen to you? That you go back to the 9 to 5 job.
Yeah,
Like sometimes they make it sound as if it's like brain surgery, you know, like you're not going to recover from this. I feel like you've always known that the 9 to 5 office culture was not for you.
Interestingly, not. I would say I when I get attached to things very easily, and you know when you get that feeling that you're like, okay, I'm just gonna work towards something. And when I was growing up, we did like an entrepreneurship thing in school, and I loved that. And then we did something at university, and like between COVID, like I got quite into that. And then someone told me about this consulting thing, and I was like, all right. I mean, I've always wanted to get a job in the city. I've always wanted to get expense dinners and get all that stuff. So I was like, okay, great. So I just focused on it for 2 years, and I never questioned the fact that I didn't want to do the 9 to 5.
So you actually enjoyed it? You were in the office and you enjoyed it? Because when I did my office and I was in an office, I was not enjoying it.
No.
I enjoyed my friends. I enjoyed chatting.
Yeah.
Like everybody does. So
course.
anyone that's listening to this right now and worked with me, they just know that I was the chatty one. So I was always talking with my colleagues. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But actually being in an office, having to clock in and out, it's just something I didn't enjoy from the beginning.
So that's, I guess, where it comes into the nuances of the story, because I
So you enjoyed it at first?
never enjoyed it because I thought I was going to enjoy it. So I worked to the point where I'd got the offer. And if you'd asked me when I'd got the offer or before getting the offer, I was like, all I want to be is a management consultant. Like everyone knew me as the person who was absolutely grinding to be a management consultant. Absolutely. I was doing all the case studies, everything. I was doing everything you could, like to a point where it was almost like embarrassing how much I was trying. And at no point did I think during that, like, am I actually going to enjoy this? Like, am I actually going to sit down and open my laptop on the first day and think, amazing, let's do this? Which is so funny, right? But I just got obsessed with the idea of getting into it, which is, I guess, very entrepreneurial in itself, because I was just wanting to win the race of getting the application.
And then you get bored, and then you get it. It's like when business owners start the business, and then afterwards, like, okay, next. But how can I create new revenues for this business?
And that's what I know that I love right now. But the problem is that I tried it a few times with internships and stuff, and it was always good because the internship was always linked to an offer. So then I was like, okay, I'm in the internship, but all I want to do is get this return offer. So I'm going to try really hard in the internship. But I never actually enjoyed the work. And then obviously I landed this role. But then it kind of gets onto the story where I then came out to Bali and saw the life that everyone was living. And then I went back to the office.
Okay.
And from the moment I walked into that office, I was like, I've made a mistake.
Really?
Yeah.
What made you think that? Was that the environment of the office? Was that because I feel like in Bali, everybody has their own schedule. Like you see people at 6 a.m. in coffee shops or 7 a.m. You see people at 10 p.m., 3 p.m. People joining yoga classes at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. What was it about your life back in London, your office life back in London, that made you feel like this is not what I want? Yeah,
it's so interesting. The company were great. I never had a problem with the company. It was you could have put me in any other consulting firm or business and I would have had the exact same problem. And it was a few things. The first was people always spoke about the weekend, what they did at the weekend, and then by Thursday it's like what they're doing at the weekend. And I remember hearing that conversation loads, and I was like, what about now? Like, what about the 5 days between the weekend? Like, are they not interesting to you? And then the other thing that I heard was people just always talking about gaming holidays. And I heard people had spreadsheets, people had like
payment
ways,
plans,
all of these
plans,
things that you can buy holiday and stuff. And I was like, wait a second. So all you're thinking about is the days, is spending so much time gaming how you cannot be in what you do as your profession. And I was like, that makes no sense to me.
Absolutely.
Why would you ever do that? So that to me was like, yeah, it was fascinating.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about people hating. I feel like people that work in offices, not everyone, okay, disclaimer, not everyone, but a lot of people. I do agree with you. I feel like that's something I also witnessed, that many people that work in offices, but not only offices are like more regular jobs. For example, I attempted to work like other like little part-time jobs like retail and other kind of things when I was at university. That's the same conversation there. So this doesn't just apply to 9-to-5s, and it doesn't apply to everyone as well. I feel like people don't enjoy their lives, and people secretly hate their lives and they hate their jobs, but they don't have the courage to leave. And that's something I've seen a lot. And it's funny because and honestly, my friends watching this, or anybody that knows me, any boss I've had, they just know that this is true. Okay, I'm not chatting shit here. Every time I've had a job, even when it wasn't something related to my career, like retail job, I've always given my 100%, my fullest. Like I've always showed up with my highest version. I've always given like, I feel like I've always enjoyed it, no matter what kind of job it was. Why? I feel like because deep down, I've always known my purpose, and I know that was just this chapter in my life. I know that wasn't what I was going to spend the rest of my life. So I've always had like a vision, like a very clear vision for my life, which means that when I've had to do a job that I haven't enjoyed, I've been able to see the whole picture, the vision, which means I've been able to genuinely enjoy it and genuinely give my 100% and, genuinely be there present. I feel like that's not the case with many people, and the issue is that people don't know what they want to do with their lives, and that's what they hate, their jobs, and they hate their lives. On that note, there is something that you spoke about last week that I found really interesting, and it kind of goes with what we're talking about right now, and that's the region beta paradox. Would you like to talk to us about that?
Sure. Yeah, it's something that I saw while I was in London. It was this kind of strange paradox that I observed myself first, that there's all of these supposedly middle-class people who are told, you leave uni, you get a good job, you work hard, you make money, and you're going to be happy. And all these people, they're in their mid-20s, their early 30s, and none of them are happy.
No.
Like, they're not deeply unhappy, but they're not happy. And that really, I was like, what's the point in doing this, right? And I came across this thing called the region beta paradox, which is that if you exist at a 7 or a 6 out of 10, if you rate your life from 0 to 10 and you exist at a 6 or a 7, then the problem with existing at a 6 and a 7 is you're not willing to make any adjustments to your life because you're kind of there, right? Like you're almost at 10, but you're not quite there. Whereas, and the region beta paradox says that in order to go to a 9 or 10, you have to be willing to go to a 4 or 5.
So really dislike your life.
Yeah, you have to really dislike your life. And I believe that London, in general, a large proportion of London is stuck at a 7, which is like, they enjoy their life. They do things that they enjoy, but they're not deeply, deeply happy. And I saw that around me with people who were supposedly meant to be happy because they were middle class and they had accumulated wealth, but at the same time, they weren't at a 10. And they were stuck in this limbo period. And that's what was fascinating about the region-based paradox, is it's this almost like psychological literature, but I just saw it around me with everyone that I was working with.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're clever. You've had all the opportunities given to you as a kid. You have gone to a good university. You've had a great education. You have the world at your oyster, yet you're a 7 out of 10 in happiness.
Absolutely. And I think that only happens in London because for context, I was based in Manchester, United Kingdom, but I've always been based London or surrounding areas like Hampshire. And when I moved up north, I spent a lot of time, as I said, Manchester, but also in Liverpool. I feel like people are not like that at all. And I feel like it's because in London, people have the pressure of high cost of living. Like people pay a lot of money to live in very like average places that I didn't realize add up to the quality of your life. Like having your own garden and not having to share like what I pay for my mortgage in Manchester in comparison to what it could bring me in London. Like It's absolutely ridiculous. And at the end of the day, all those things like having your own car, your own transport, and having the luxury of parking in front of your house, having space, you know, where you can have dogs, being surrounded by parks, and on average having a lower cost of living.
Yeah.
All those things add up to how you feel about yourself.
100%. And I found that when I was in London that I got a salary of 60k straight out of uni, which for a graduate,
which that's absolutely amazing.
Which I was so happy about, right? And I was like, oh, you know, I'm gonna be spending money. I can do whatever I want. And then I was like, I don't actually feel that. I feel like I'm paycheck to paycheck sometimes, right? And don't get me wrong, I was in no way underprivileged. Like I was living a good life, but I was like, I feel like I should be living a better standard of life because of this, right?
It's just the standards of life that surround, you know, London that are making people unhappy, and people don't want to recognize that and say it out loud.
100%. Well, I mean, I guess I've almost done that, and it's funny because I actually was looking in the internet the other day, and I've been quoted by the Independent or some big newspaper for basically being one of these people, which is
crazy.
Which is talking about London. And it's a shame though, because I love people in London. I grew up in London, like it was great, but it just feels that there's something that you get sold the dream of as a kid or as a university student. And I love the big lights of it when I was a kid, but then I was there as a graduate and I was like, there's just more to life than this. And one of the big things for me, and I'm interested to hear your take on this, is for me, the drinking culture was unbelievable.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
that was the part.
It's a bit scary.
And I was a guilty offender. Like I've spent a lot of time getting absolutely wasted in London. But as soon as I left the bubble and then went back in again, I was like, I just saw that people were doing Monday to Friday, disliking their lives. They got obliterated on Friday and Saturday, were depressed until Wednesday, and then just repeated that cycle again. And I was like, what an awful way to live. And that's my opinion. Like some of my good friends, they genuinely enjoy that. And I'm like, fine, if you enjoy that, I'm so happy for you. But I know most people don't enjoy, or a lot of people I know don't enjoy that, and they're not willing to speak up about the fact they don't enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Because they're not willing to take the risk to do anything else other than conform to that lifestyle.
Why do you think people don't take the risk and they prefer to stay, you know, perhaps in a mediocre job that they don't enjoy? Okay, and with this, I want to clarify, I'm not saying that 9-to-5 jobs are mediocre. You can have a business and hate it. You can have a 9-to-5 job and hate it. You can have a 9-to-5 job and love it. You can have a business and love it. Okay, I'm talking about people that have jobs, any kind of job, and they secretly hate it. They hate their lives. They don't like the city where they live in. However, they perhaps rate their lives as a 6 or a 7, as you said, so they stay. Why do you think people stay?
It's so funny. I think people stay. I talk to people on sales calls all the time, so I'm so used to seeing this right in front of me, and this because they're scared. They're just terrified that there is that they're wasting their life, so they don't want to accept that they should be looking for something else, because it's like, well, then you're admitting that what you're doing right now is the wrong thing.
Absolutely.
And the fear of the unknown, because the problem is in the UK, you are just not promoted this lifestyle that you could have as an entrepreneur, this lifestyle of having your own business. It's not in our nature.
It's only a very small niche in people in London that actually have it.
For sure.
Most of them are actually my clients from my agency. They are like multi-6, 7-figure, like £1 million businesses. And I feel like that's different, but people don't talk about that kind of entrepreneurship, isn't it? Like
exactly, right. Like they've fallen into it, like they've been in the good circle. I know entrepreneurs in London, like it exists for sure, but it's not the norm. And I compare it to America, and the last project I did at my consulting company was with a load of Americans. And in England, we like to give Americans a bad rap. We like to say, you know, their humour's bad and all that sort of thing.
I know.
And we love to say that.
I always wondered why,
It's because I tell you what, it's funny because we have this like dry humour that we talk about, but the dry humour also breeds into negativity, and there's a very fine balance. But the problem is the dry humour, the Americans don't get because they're overly positive. But that overly positive aspect to them breeds into an abundance mindset, into working and feeling optimistic about things. And yes, I love English humour. Like I love connecting with English people. But at the same time, that negativity is just bred into the culture that we have. And that you feel as an entrepreneur, because I spoke to an American
Yeah.
who, when I told them about my consulting business and they about my Free Thinkers Club, they're like, "Good on you, man! You're killing it! Like you're going for the American dream, all that sort of thing." And I tell my English friends, and it's just bred into them to go, "Oh, but like, have you considered that? Like, that's not going to work. Have you considered that? That's not going to work." And I just stopped talking to people in England about my business because I was so sick of having to defend
Absolutely.
what I was doing.
Just defend it. But then when they tell you about their jobs, you respect it. Like you don't start questioning them,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
about what job is this, about how much are you getting paid. Like, we congratulate them, but
Yeah.
what is it that they don't do the same with us?
And I think they're not. The other thing that is people fear is that the reason that they don't take the criticism is because people want immediate gratification. So to be an entrepreneur, you have to work incredibly hard without any sort of reward.
Absolutely.
And that culture is just not like known in the UK, right? Whereas
Failure. It's seen as failure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing to do that. Whereas
Absolutely.
Americans, like, they'll get up, they'll go again, they'll get up, they'll go again. Obviously massive generalizations,
Absolutely.
but that's what I've seen, right? And that was one of the big things that people saw me. I failed for like, I posted for 12 months and I'm pretty sure my follower count went down for 12 months, right? Like, I don't think I gained any more followers. And there's an amazing story that I have, which is like, all my friends, I love them to death, but it was tough to post on social media when I was around them. And again,
you
I
get
had
judged.
exactly
Yeah,
right. And I
was judged as well when I started.
Exactly
social
right.
media.
And I was a rugby guy who had previously been quoted for saying I'd never post on social media. That's so tragic. And I was posting for a year, and I remember so clearly this incident. This was like a canon event for me. I remember so clearly sitting in one of my friends' kitchens, and they were playing a game which is how many followers has Sol got. And it was like an ironic game, which is like, it's probably not grown since the last time we played this game, basically. And right after that game, I just turned the Free Thinkers Club on, and I just like started making revenue from it.
Wow.
One of my friends asked me, "Oh, so like, you know, what are you charging for a client?" And I was just like, "Oh yeah, £1,000. Like, I'm just starting off, whatever." And he was like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, assume, you know, you have not got any clients yet." And I was like, "No, I've got 10. And he went, "Wait." And I remember seeing him. He went, "So that means you've made 10 grand." And I remember that being the first time that like, and then everyone in the room went quiet. They stopped playing the game. And I was like, that's the first time.
Absolutely.
That's the first time that they saw like the success from it. No, but it wasn't, maybe it was respect, but it was like, they genuinely were like, so all of that time we've been ripping the shit out of him, and he's actually gone and done something with it. And that was the last time that they ever took the piss out of me for it.
Wow. Absolutely amazing. What advice would you give to someone that is listening to this right now or watching this that is a bit embarrassed or like shy to talk about their business to their friends and their family just because they feel like they're not going to support them?
Mm-hmm. I would say entrepreneurship is such a good filter because it shows you who is going to be the people that are going to support you and who are going to be the people that aren't. And just because someone doesn't support you doesn't mean they're not your friend, but it really shows you like who you want to keep close. And I accidentally have like done that with my friends, and like I love them all. Like they're all going to be like, I'm going to know them all for the rest of my life. I can't wait. But I'll remember the ones that really supported me, because that was amazing. Like it was amazing to have that. So I think I'd tell someone, if they're scared of telling their friends, then maybe they have the wrong friends.
Absolutely. On that note, I would like to say, when I told my friends about my podcast or about my business, everyone was like supportive. So I guess I'm very selective with the kind of friends I have, but it hasn't always been like this. And just like you, when I started my content creation business, circa a decade ago, especially when I had retail part-time jobs and other kind of jobs, I did feel like sometimes people were taking the piss, especially when I was doing things like, hey guys, there's a new post on the blog, here is the link, or link in bio, or things like that. Or I remember I used to get invited to events mind you, this is like 8 years ago. Like it wasn't what it is right now. And I remember then coming to work the next days, and then people would be like, "Oh, so what was that about?" Yeah, like you could just tell that they just didn't respect it. Like you could tell. But at the end of the day, those are not my friends. Until this day, those people are not my friends. So, as you said, entrepreneurship or your hobby or whichever we're talking about, like content creation or a business you're starting, that's a filter. And at the end of the day, people that love you will support you. And on that note, I wanted to talk about, because people that love you support you, for example, like our parents. But sometimes people, especially if they really love you, they don't understand what you're doing at the beginning. And on that note, I would like to talk about your parents.
Sure.
How did they react when you decided to quit your 60K a year graduate job in London and move back with them?
Interesting. So my parents have
Were
been...
they always supportive? Because we're now talking about your surroundings and people that support you.
Of course. 100%. I think what I applied to my friends applied to my parents is that they hadn't seen the lot. I'd seen people in Bali, and I'd seen people who were making good money, living great lives with businesses that they loved. And my friends hadn't seen that.
Yeah.
So when I banged on about it, they were like, "What are you on about? You're weird." And my parents said that in just a much more loving way. So they always supportive. Like I have the best parents. I love them so much. But my dad is an investment banker, and the whole online business world didn't exist when my dad was younger, or when he was looking at grad jobs. So they were always really supportive, a bit like not understanding of why I would ever throw away what was quote unquote an amazing career to have jumped into in consulting. So they were always just a bit like, why would you not just continue doing that?
They don't
and then when I
understand
made it, so that was that was almost phase one. It was like, come on, you worked so hard to get this. Why don't you stay in it? And then stage two was like, okay, we clearly see that you don't want to do this, but you should really have a backup plan. You shouldn't just quit this job with zero income. And that was...
But again, they're protecting us, isn't it?
100%. They did it completely out of love,
I think it doesn't
right?
come exactly, and I would like to clarify that this is different from being surrounded by certain people that I'm just not going to label them as friends. Let's just say colleagues or people that you know from your neighborhood. That I feel like sometimes in that case it's jealousy, right? Like people don't support it because they wish they had the courage to do what you're doing.
Sure.
I feel like when it comes to someone that genuinely loves you, like you're good friends, you know who they are, and your parents, it's different. Because my mom reacted like your dad when I decided to drop out of university at 18 and move to the UK. She was like, "No, you're not." She was like, "Why would you do that? You had a perfect, like." Your life is perfect here. You have an amazing uni. You have like a job, everything. Like, why would you leave me and leave everything? And it's just like you're almost ungrateful, isn't it? Like, why would you leave this that you've worked so hard for?
Exactly.
Like, my mom saw how hard she worked for this, and my mom spent a lot of money in my education as well. Like, I was that girl that was finishing school at like 4 or 5 p.m. and then I'm gonna have lessons from 5 p.m. to like 8 p.m. every single day, and then weekends in the morning too. Like. My mom was very academic, so when I decided to do something such as drop out of university and go to England to figure things out, she was not understanding it. And I feel like that this is a bit different, because when our parents react like this, it's because they are scared. They are scared that we're just making crazy decisions without thinking of the consequences, isn't it? And at the end of the day, I feel like our parents want the best for us.
Of course. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's a good distinction to make between those. And
absolutely.
There's like, that was 100% what they wanted. And my dad comes from like humble beginnings, and he just was like, I've given you all this support.
Why would you not take it?
I've just
absolutely.
I've got this, and it's been perfect. He's got me there. And then it's like, I've decided
I don't
to do
want it
something
anymore.
else, right?
Yeah.
And it's great. And it's a very interesting dynamic to have to deal with. But they've now got to the point where they're like, my mum kind of understands what I'm doing. My dad understands fundamentally business very well, but just has no, like, it was so cute. He like took me on a walk once, and he said, have you like considered this YouTube thing, and I'm like almost at like 8K subscribers at that point.
You're like,
and I'm
I already have a dad.
but like that was him giving me like I want to care and I want to know about that. So they were always super supportive. There were a few times when I had to be like, I'm making this decision. I had a really good like moment when the day before I quit my job, and I called my dad up, and a guy called Alex Hormozy, who I like a lot, told a story once of him when he left his job. He did a very similar thing to me. He left his job, but instead of going back to his parents' house, he drove to the other side of the country, and he called his dad on the way to the other side of the country and said, "Dad, I'm doing this." And then their relationship never recovered because his dad never forgave him for what he did, or that's what he says anyway. So I called my dad and I said, "Look, Dad, he didn't approve because I didn't have a backup plan. He wanted me to be happy, but I didn't have a backup plan." And I said to my dad, I said, "Dad, I'm going to do this. You have two choices here. You can either decide to support me and we can have a great relationship and I'm just going to make this work, or you can decide not to, but I'm giving you the choice. I am doing this and you can make your decision in this." And I think that was a powerful moment because he realized that this was my decision and that it was now up to him whether he wanted to support me. And he wasn't not supportive before that, but ever since then he's been supportive, even though he's had to bite his tongue a few times when I'm talking about TikTokers and all that sort of thing. So that was amazing. Cool. Yeah, that's cool.
Same. And I feel like at the end of the day, when our parents see us, like, let's be honest here, they see us, we're making money.
Sure.
And we're happy. They start to respect it. Sure. That's what happened with my mom.
Sure.
She was like, at first she was still a bit confused, but she was supporting me throughout university and stuff. She's like, "You finished uni, what are you going to do with your life? What are you doing?" Like, she was putting this pressure on me. I was like, I just know I'm going to be successful. Like, I was always telling her, I know I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. And my mom was always a bit fearful. She was like, "Was it the right decision that you moved to the UK?" And it wasn't until I was doing, like, literally, I was 24, your age now, 24 years old, 25, mind you, I left when I was 18 years old, okay, so from 18 to 24, that I purchased my house and I finished university and I had a really good job, that my mom was like, so you're not just
100%,
walking around life
100%.
Lost without knowing what you're doing. Because I feel like that's why sometimes parents can get a bit irritated with us when they feel like, especially our kind of parents that are like very academic and they just want the best for us in a traditional way. If we come across as like we just don't know what we're doing and we're just you know,
we've thrown away every single thing that they've given us.
They don't understand
right?
it, but it comes from a place of protection. And I feel like, at least in my mom's scenario, and the reason why I want to share this is just to help anyone that's probably listening to this that is at that stage now where their parents are not fully understanding or supporting what they're doing. I'm here to tell you that work as hard as you can work and prove them wrong. Like, once your parents see you that you're genuinely happy with what you're doing and it's paying off, and let's be honest, you are making money, they're gonna love that. Especially my mom was like, that's her love language. Mom was like, oh my god, you are actually like, so everything changed. And funnily enough, a couple of years ago, I was having a conversation with her and she told me, "You don't know how happy I am that you made that decision to come here."
I love that.
So something that made her so upset and feel uncertain about it turned into, you made the best decision ever.
I love that. Yeah. I want to get my phone and I want to read out a text message that I sent to my mum, because I have the same thing. Because I'm new in this journey still, and my parents are like, they're still, you know, I'm 3 months into starting this business. Obviously, I'm very happy to be.
We'll talk about that now.
Exactly right. But I sent my mum this text message and I said, I want to read it out, because I'm still at that point where I need to financially prove to my parents that I'm happy. And I sent.
That's the stage, like, financially. You have to prove. Yeah.
Wait, I don't need to say it again. So I sent my mum this text message because I'm sending the stage where I sometimes send like Stripe screenshots to my parents to prove that I'm making the money that I am. And I also sent this and I said, "I just want to say thank you for the patience with everything. I'm so happy right now. Of course things will go wrong, but you know it would have been, of course things will go wrong, but I know it must have been not fun for you and Dad to deal with the uncertainty the last few months. Haha, but thank you so much. I love you lots." Aww. And I said that, and I feel that I had to I feel that I have to keep telling them that because I want to affirm the decision that I've made.
Absolutely.
So they know that, like, yeah, the money's coming in, but I'm happy.
Absolutely. And especially that you are self-aware, that you're not, because I feel like sometimes people, and this happened to some of my friends that are artists, that I feel like they're not self-aware and they just work in like from gig to gig, trying to make money, trying to get part-time jobs, but they live in their own world and they're not seeing the reality.
Sure.
Like you are like in your late 30s now, you still haven't figured out your career. You're literally still, you haven't got anything stable yet. But I feel like in your case and in my case as well, we're very self-aware.
Sure.
And we know that the decision we made is risky, but we are also letting our parents know that it's going to be okay. We just know it's going to be okay.
But here's this, what's risky, chasing happiness or existing in the same place that you hate? What's more a risk?
Absolutely. I feel like staying in a place that you don't like is more risky because you're wasting your life.
100%.
That's the biggest risk.
And that's what I love about when people say that what I'm doing is risky, is I'm like, what's the risk? I wake up every day and I love what I'm doing.
In a villa in Bali, where do you wake up?
Exactly. But it's not even like they say it, it's just like it's risky. And I'm like, no, the only risk is looking back at 50
Preach.
And saying, oh my God, I spent 30 years doing something I hated. And right now, the only risk that I'm taking is, well, I'm taking no risk. I saw every day that I spent in consulting as a risk because it was promising me happiness at 50. Whereas right now, I'm happy at 24 and I'm loving life. And that's the most important thing, I think.
Absolutely. I love that. On that note, what is it that you actually do?
It's a great question. So it's a funny evolution that I went through. I was posting for 18 months. I saw content as my ticket to freedom out of the 9 to 5 because I saw the power of a personal brand. I saw the power of accumulating an audience. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it, but as you can tell, I like talking and I was like, I'm just going to make content. And I came across like, some great mentors and they told me just post every day. So that's all I did. I just posted every day and I was like, some way this is going to turn into making money and helping me escape this job that I don't want to go back to. And then I posted for 18 months, got some good traction, built up a really engaged audience. And then I just had people ask me, like, how the hell do I get started with social media? I'm someone who has a business, and I know that personal branding is important. I want to do it. And I was like, okay, weirdly enough, I'm now teaching people what I originally started to do. But then I realized that I'd learned a high value skill, which is how to create a personal brand. So then started helping coaches, freelancers, agencies, consultants, doing their personal branding. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And that's kind of where I am now. Apart from the little iteration that I've done on that is I realized that most of these coaches and consultants, freelancers, agency owners, their content doesn't do well because they don't have a good business model. And then when their content does well, they don't know how to sell to people. And that's like, they've got the full spec of problems. So I just helped a few of my clients with like their sales skills because I had some sales background. And I helped a few of them with actually how to develop an offer. And now I've just become a full spec.
Yeah, you are essentially a consultant now.
Exactly, which is so
funny. It's a full circle moment.
It's so funny, right? But the kind of the main premise that I go for is back to the roots and what we've been talking about in this conversation is I want to help people who are in careers or fear the fact that they're going to be put into careers that they don't like, build an online business. And I got this from Matt Gray, which is I want to help people work where they want, when they want, on what they want, and with who they want, the 4 Ws.
I love that.
And if you have those 4 Ws, which I think we're very fortunate to say we do, because I don't even know what day of the week it is right now, and we're sat in Bali loving life.
Yeah.
We have them,
Absolutely.
and I want everyone else to have them. Because it's not about living in Bali on a beach. It's not about being able to earn millions of pounds. It's about having the choice to do whatever you want. And that is what I want to give people, is the career that they can have choice on what they do when they wake up, when they go to bed. And that is inspiring. And working with 25 clients right now, just actually hit 6 figures in 2 months, which is crazy. So that's very cool.
Crazy growth.
So that's really cool. Literally found out today, and yeah, we're scaling that nicely, bringing on teams, and more importantly than any of that is I just love what I do, and that is something that I'm so happy that I'm able to say.
Absolutely, and confidently say, and I know it's true as well. what advice would you give to someone wanting to grow or establish their personal brand online? And if you could tell us about what is even a personal brand.
Yeah, it's great. So a personal brand is just people seeing you as a source of either value or entertainment. And that is all that people need to think about is how do you provide value or how do you entertain people? Entertaining, you go off and do Mr. Beast
Like a
YouTube
TikToker,
videos, right?
yeah.
And not necessarily my speciality, but what I can say is if you want to build a personal brand which you can turn into your ticket to freedom, then giving value is all you need to do. You need to solve people's problems with every video, and people who have those problems will see you as the source of their solution to those problems, and they will come to you over and over again. And ever since I changed that, I used to make videos about fitness watches, I used to make videos about mental health, all of these random topics. And then I started realizing, like, as soon as I gave people value, I solved someone's problem that they had, my follower count shot up. And not only did it shoot up, but I also brought in people who were willing to pay me at some point. And so if anyone's listening to this and they want to build a personal brand, just find out a person or just find out. So if anyone's watching this and they want to start a personal brand, just think about a person that you have in mind and think about all of their problems and just make a video after video after video that solves their problems, and you'll have a personal brand.
Amazing. And what are 3 things people can do right now? So apart from that, that's number 1.
Of
So like
course.
think about like someone like your ideal client
Yeah.
and 3 problems they have. What other things like
Nice.
should they be on all the social media platforms?
Yeah.
Like because I've heard from me, YouTube is always going to be the strongest one, isn't it? Like because at the end of the day, someone that chooses to spend 30 or 40 minutes of their spare time listening to you,
Sure.
it's going to be a very loyal
Exactly.
person. So that's an amazing way to find like ideal clients and like to build a loyal following. At the end of the day, with TikTok and short form content, like it's great, it serves a purpose, but you can't rely on it to build a personal brand.
Exactly, 100% agree. And I think the 2 things that I would say on top of that are, the first is building a trust building ecosystem. And that's what I like to combine short form and long form. So long form is great, but if you've never seen someone before and they ask you to watch a 30-minute video of theirs, it's like, okay, I'm not sure whether I'm willing to give that, right? Exactly. Whereas the great thing about short form is I see it as like the trailer to the movie. So I see short form as putting out content after content after content that people go, oh, I like this guy. Now I'm going to give him 30 minutes of my time. And then the ecosystem, which is how you build a business off social media, is you have the YouTube and then you send them back to Instagram and they watch your Instagram and they watch a bit of your TikTok and then they're like, oh, I like this guy even more. I'm going to keep watching it. And they go round and round and round to the point where they're like, I really trust this guy's soul, and I really, whatever he has to offer, I really trust him. And I see that on sales calls when I join people. People are just like, I just want to start with you. And it's like, they literally say, it's like I know you. And I'm like, that's because I've built a trust building ecosystem.
Wow.
So that's the second thing I'd say, is to post on Instagram and YouTube, because they both serve a purpose in that ecosystem.
Absolutely.
And then the third one, which is the number 1 failure of everyone on social media, and I was told this from day one, is social media is amazing because you can succeed at it with 100% guarantee if you stay consistent. All you have to do is post full time consistently and you will be successful. And I had that in my head when I was posting every single day for 18 months. I had that in my head. I was like, all I need to do is post the next day, and then all I need to do is post the next day. And I know, because I've seen countless people do it, that I will be successful in something. And people, it's almost gutting the amount of good creators and good people with personal brands that I see who stop and they fall off. And I'm like, you built all that up just to fall off.
I know.
It actually pains me to, like, I've got some great friends who I was like, you're going to be amazing at creating, you're going to build an amazing personal brand, and they fall off. So that's the third one, is just how nice is it? Like, imagine if I said you could have guaranteed success, but all you have to do is something once a day. You'd be like, amazing. And that's the great thing about content creation.
Obviously, and do it right.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But the premise of doing it once a day is you get better at it. It's like if you were to go to the gym once a day, you get better at going to the gym. If you were to practice the guitar once a day, you get better at doing that. So you do have to improve at it. But the premise is, if you do something for 2 years, you cannot be good at it. You cannot not be good at it. You cannot not be good at it.
Absolutely. What is your ideal formula or like, what is your ideal social media posting formula to stay consistent? So for me, it's like one YouTube per week and stick to the same day per week and stick to the same time, because we know the algorithm actually favors you if you do that. But Instagram, do you think you have to post every day to grow?
I think you have to post twice a day.
Really?
100%. I know some good friends in the creator space and they say post twice a day. And I fully believe that. Like, because every time you post, you look at your statistics and it's going out to people who have never seen you before. So if 99% of your Reels viewers are people who have never seen you before, then you should be getting as much content out there as possible. Twice a day for me is my minimum standard where I set now, and I will never do anything less than twice a day.
How about TikTok? Do you think TikTok is a good place to start?
Not interested in TikTok at all.
Really?
Not interested.
Why is that?
It brings in junk followers. It's TikTok.
Not loyal.
TikTok is for kids. It's for kids. Wow. Like, it's for kids. It's for kids and people who want to push. Sorry, TikTok is for kids. I'm going to go hard on that opinion because it's like Mimi, right? It's for kids. It's for people who want to push TikTok shops, like affiliates. Yep. That makes a lot of sense because you want virality and high numbers.
Absolutely.
So you can sell products. Yep. And then it's for influencers who want to basically just get their like face out there. But you build no trust and authority. And all I want to build for me is I want to build people who go, that Soul guy, I can trust him. And TikTok gives me nothing.
Absolutely. And I've seen that as well with my own eyes. I've seen big TikTokers with literally millions of followers organizing like meet and greets or like launching a product and then it being so unsuccessful and trash. And I've seen YouTube, even myself, I literally have like less than 2,000 subscribers on
Which is
YouTube.
Great.
I get messages every single day.
Exactly.
Every single day. I get messages from strangers telling me, would you ever organize a group trip? I feel like you would be an amazing person to travel with. I'm like, but you don't know me. But people feel like they know you.
They do.
Or even lately when, well, I'm not going to talk about this in the podcast, my dog, but when things happen to me in my personal life and then people have been watching it, they reach out to me and they ask me about how was this? How do you find this? As if they knew it. And I feel like the community that you build with long form content is going to be amazing.
For sure.
And at the end of the day, someone that chooses to spend, as I said, 30 or 40 minutes of the time, because let's be honest, when you find a YouTuber that you really like, what do? You watch a video and you really like it, you go to their channel and you start binge watching all the videos, isn't it? When it comes to TikTok or Instagram, you don't do that. You can come across an amazing TikTok, like funny. I love, by the way, TikTok for like entertainment, like laugh.
100%.
And I love my algorithm because it's all like comedy and dogs.
For sure.
Absolutely the dream. When you go on TikTok and you see an amazing video that makes you laugh or that you really like, you don't really click on the profile of the person. Next. Yeah. You're like,
exactly.
Next. And I feel like it's going to be very difficult to build a loyal following just using TikTok.
100%. I completely agree. And the only use that I've had for TikTok is I track everyone who buys from me and ask them where they came from. And a few times people have said, I first saw you on TikTok. And I was like, wow, great. Because what that means is in the funnel, they see me and they're like, who's this ginger guy? And then they see me on Instagram and then they're like, okay, I recognize that ginger guy from TikTok.
Absolutely.
Then they follow me. Then I show them a YouTube video. Then they're in my ecosystem and they go around. But that's the only reason I'd use TikTok.
So do you repurpose the content from your YouTube and from your Instagram page onto TikTok?
Yeah, I put all my shorts on Instagram and TikTok. So I just
So you don't create specific content for TikTok?
No, because I'm not interested in it. I just putting out mass marketing. Like I just want to put my face in places that people might see and recognize it, so that they then watch a bit of longer form content.
Have you noticed how all the big YouTubers, all the OG are all coming back to YouTube? Everyone is coming back to YouTube because people are realizing that TikTok is fun, but you're losing engagement, you're losing community, and in fact, you're going to attract sometimes very low quality followers, people that they've never seen you before, and they're just going to point out that one thing they didn't like, from your video, and they're going to comment. And I see this with my clients with their TikTok pages, receiving hate comments, or you will never receive those kind of comments on like YouTube or Instagram, or if you receive them, it's going to be at a not.
They're much more targeted.
They're
much more personal.
They're more personal because they know you exactly.
Like, I remember when you said that 3 months ago, and you didn't say that this time, and I'm like, I think that's a good thing because you've been watching my videos. But
literally, that happens to me on Instagram when I sometimes post.
Yeah.
I thought you said you were vegan and you were not eating this anymore. I'm like, oh my god.
Exactly. But that's a sign of building a good audience.
Absolutely.
So you have to have that, right?
Absolutely. So you split your time between Bali, Dubai,
Great
and
question.
the UK.
Oh no.
Or where are you based? Where do you even
It's
live?
a great question.
Where do you live?
I am here in Bali right now.
So you're fully based in Bali.
This is where I am right now. I see Dubai as being a great place. See, the thing, people seem to have a very negative impression of Dubai, and I definitely think it has its negatives. Like, the lack of nature is tough, but what you lose in the lack of nature and maybe the lack of community just as much, you gain in like pure entrepreneurship, pure
quality
abundance mindset, quality of life, and all that stuff. So I want to do a bit of my time in Dubai. I want to do a bit of my time in Bali, and I want to do a bit of time in Cape Town, and then maybe somewhere else. I've built this life so that I can choose where I want to be, and I like having a base. I think that's super important. I think that's going to be here, but I also like the idea of being a bit flexible, and that's for me the life that I want to live. And I think one thing that I was surprised about Bali is that I was worried that I'd lose community here because people were so transient in the place, and I found nothing but the opposite.
It's the opposite.
Right now.
You're gonna find your tribe. I feel like, hey, I'm finding my real tribe.
Exactly. And the best thing about it is there's a little entrepreneurship digital online business circuit, and the people that I bump into in Dubai are all the people who come here, who are all the people who go to Cape Town, who are all the people that end up going to Marbella, and you just can do this little circuit where you're just bumping into people and people and people, and I love that.
Absolutely. So let's talk about quality of life. What does having a good quality of life mean to you? Because this is a debate I had with a friend the other day. Mm-hmm. She thought that you can't have good quality of life in Bali, which to me is just, so she was defending Dubai over Bali, but to me, it's just different for different things. But overall, I think Bali has a better quality of life than Dubai for other reasons.
100%. I think if we're talking about place locations, I think they're important for different seasons in your life. If you want to lock in and build a business, Dubai is absolutely incredible for that. But I think Bali, I say this regularly on my Instagram, which is like, Bali, I up-level every single part of my life.
Absolutely.
I up-level
your
my
health,
happiness, my health, my nutrition, my exercise,
your work.
My work.
Do you feel more productive here?
I do.
Because I feel more inspired and more productive here.
Exactly. But I would say Dubai takes that to another level because your net worth drives past you every 2 seconds, and you're reminded how irrelevant you are. And
how much money there is.
Which is great because as long as you come at it from a healthy place, it's very inspiring.
Absolutely.
Like, I see a really expensive car and I'm reminded that what I've made in a year is someone has just dropped in a on a car for like a fun day, and it's super important to put that into perspective because it means you make big business decisions, which I like. So that for me is why I always will have Dubai as a place that I go to.
So Bali and Dubai, ideally you like to split.
And maybe a bit Cape Town because
why Cape Town?
I love the nature of Cape Town. I love the vibe of Cape Town. I love the fact that it's again an entrepreneurial spot where people go.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know.
January, February, March, amazing time to be in Cape Town. Yeah, so good.
Really? I didn't know Cape Town was an entrepreneurial spot.
It's really interesting. There's a lot of like agencies there's a lot of like it's a very online biz place, which is cool, so I like that as well. But I think for me, and I was discussing this with a friend the other day, for me it's just so important to have community, and he was like, maybe we might go to Dubai a bit earlier than you said. Do you want to come? And I was like, man, like I want to be with the community, and he is someone who's great and doing super cool things, and we are talking about moving with a few other people, and that's why I like that, is because I want to just build cool things with cool people, and it doesn't really matter where I am in the world as long as I'm surrounded by that sort of energy.
I love that. I love this conversation. Just to wrap up, I wanted to ask you about what advice would you give to someone that's currently listening or watching this episode and something sparked in them. I feel like, and I always say that if you're watching something or listening to something and it spark something new, even if it makes you be upset or it makes you feel like, but there's a reason why. And it's because they're probably saying or doing something that you wish you could say or do. So what advice would you give to someone that's probably watching this or listening to this, that this episode has like resonated with them or has moved something in them?
I love
what
that.
What would you tell them?
I would say that to escape that life and to do what you want, it requires three things. Actually, I'm going to repeat that again because I want to get that as a good hook.
That's going to be a good hook.
That I would say to escape your 9 to 5 and to escape that life, that middle class unhappiness life, you just have to do three things. The first is be open that maybe you weren't living the best life that you could have. Be open that there's opportunities around you where people are living a cooler life than you, because that's the first thing. The second is to do as many things as you can, literally everything under the sun. Try everything, say yes to everything, and try everything, say yes to everything, and you will find that thing that sparks like your belly. You will find that thing that sparks the passion inside of you, and that is an amazing feeling. And then the third is to invest or to find someone who is doing what you're doing but is a few steps ahead of you, and they will literally give you a ladder and teach you how to climb it, and you'll be exactly where they are. And that's the only three things you need to do, and you can live the life you want.
Amazing. That sounds amazing. There are a couple of questions I want to ask you.
Go.
Quick fire questions. So there is something that you spoke about, which is the worst case scenario, isn't it? So back to, if somebody is listening to this right now, just feel like this is resonating with them. Let's talk about the worst case scenario and how they can apply it into their lives.
I absolutely love that. And it comes on to what we were just speaking about there, which is quite literally thinking, if you want to make a change in your life and you do that change, actually map out what the worst
write it down.
Like, what is the worst thing? Because I think we both agree on this. It's like, the worst case scenario, if you're not going to die, then there's actually like the only negative outcome in life is death. So if it's not that, you can survive it. And it's almost going to sound really, really strange to say, but I take a lot of inspiration, and I was really fascinated by a study that found that when people lose a limb, they drop in happiness and then they return back to normal. And I was like, that's fascinating, because I thought losing a leg or losing a few legs, or 2 legs, or losing a few legs, or losing 2 legs would be something that would kill my happiness. And it's actually like, no. Because really, the worst case scenario is death, and everything apart from that, you could just make things work. And when I quit my job, I viewed that as like, okay, I'm living with my parents, but I get to spend more time with my parents. How cool is that? Like, and the worst case scenario is never quite as bad as you think.
No, and sometimes, because I guess for us, I'm sure I can see it coming. Someone is going to say, for you guys, it's very easy to say it because you're young, and you don't have kids, you don't have this and that. I think it still applies to those kind of scenarios. And at the end of the day, not everything is black and white, okay? So say that you are stuck in a job that you don't like, but you're forced to stay there because, financial stability, or you have a kid, or you have, a mortgage that you want. You can still do this, but obviously you can't just wildly quit your job and move back to your parents. You can still do this, but you can plan ahead.
Exactly.
You can calculate, okay, how much do I need per month?
Yeah.
What's the worst case scenario? So the worst case scenario is that I try this for 6 months or 8 months or 9 months. It doesn't work out, and then I get a job. Okay, then how can you plan for the 6 months or 8 months or 9 months?
Exactly.
Okay, still applies to those. So I just wanted to clarify that even if you have responsibilities that we perhaps don't have, which, by the way, when I quit my job, I had responsibilities. I had a mortgage. I had a car that I was paying for. So imagine the pressure. But at the end of the day, that pressure is what got me out of bed every morning and got me to keep giving my 100%.
Well, I'm not going to make you attach your opinion to this, but my view is that anyone who says I have responsibilities is a victim, and I have no time for that.
Absolutely.
Because
it's an excuse.
I have no time, because I sit on sales calls with people every day who say, I want this so badly, but I've got this problem. And they think that everyone else has had life handed easy to them, and they're the only person who's struggling. And it frustrates me to the core to listen to those people, because when you become a victim and when you believe that things happen to you that are out of your control, you spiral into saying, I can't control my life, I can't do anything about it.
I know, and you're letting something else, like an external circumstance, control your life.
The time is never right to change. The time is never right to do something.
It will never be right.
For both of us, it made no sense to do what we did when we did it,
No.
and the difference is we just did it. And I'd say politely to anyone who says there's two guys or a girl. I'd say politely to anyone who's sitting and listening to us, who is saying, "Oh, it's easy for these two. They're just sitting in Bali." Is you're just being a victim. You're just being a victim, and you have a choice. You either do it or you don't. And I'm not going to lose any sleep over it if you do or do it. But no one's coming to save you.
Absolutely, I agree with that. How can you, like, do you help people? So if somebody's, again, watching this or somebody wants to work with you directly, how do you help people? Because I saw on your social media that you also sell courses and you have been accused of being an online scammer. So how is it that you actually help people?
Unreal. So I just take everyone's money and just, that's the way that I roll. Yeah, I spend no tax, and that's the way that I do it, which is so funny, right? No, I think it's so funny that you say that, because the online scammer thing is one of the reasons why I'm so anti the UK, because it's the default thing that people say when people are making money online and living this lifestyle is you must be a scammer, you must be a course seller. But that I could make a whole podcast about this, but genuinely, right? The course thing is crazy, because if you're selling a course, all courses is they're just leveraged media of your knowledge. So I have knowledge in my head of how to create a personal brand. I put it on a course, and it saves me time so that I can sell it at a cheaper price, and someone can go through it themselves.
Like you're actually benefiting people, because not everybody can afford a one-to-one coaching session with you. Exactly.
And someone's going to listen to that and say, so Sol's just said he's benefiting someone by giving them a course. Must be a scammer. And the problem is that goes right back to what I said at the start, which is why what I said for the 3 steps that you should do if you want to live this life is you have to have an open mind, because the people that believe that this is scammers, like we're all scammers out here, are the ones that are just going to sit in the jobs hating their life. And that's why I love being called a scammer, because I get to look at that person and think, wow, that person's going to hate the rest of their life.
Wow.
And I know that as soon as every single person who I work with has, like, I could tell you amazing stories about the people I've worked with, but this is the best one, which is, there was a guy, I'm going to get emotional when I talk about this. There was a guy called Andrew who came to me, and he was talking to me about, he was having arguments with his wife. He was struggling for money. He was in like crippling debt. Like, they were living at his grandparents' house. It was like he was having breakdowns every night, like really like tough stuff. We started working together. He was helping me with my podcast, and I consulted him on how to grow his business. And it was so, like, even through that 3 months that we were working together, month 1, month 2, struggling, breakdowns, arguments with wife, like in the darkest place. Like, I was really worried about him. And then we got to maybe 2.5 months in, and he sent me a text message like, "You'll never guess what. I've just closed a client for $4,500. I'm out of debt. I can now feed my kid.
Oh my
I can
God.
I can now, without worry, pay my bills off." And he just sent me like a video of him going through his bank balance and saying, "You've genuinely changed my life. You've genuinely, like, I am now out of the worst place." And I was like,
amazing.
if someone looks at that video and calls me a scammer,
Then
so be it. So be it. But I don't care about the money. I don't care about anything like that. Just seeing that literal one difference that I've made in one human being's life halfway across the world is enough for me to know in myself that what I'm doing is good.
I love that. Absolutely love that. I wanted to ask you some quick fire questions to wrap up.
Nice.
Let's see. So, what is one book that has changed the way you think?
The Almanac of Never Rather Cunt.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Post every day.
If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, we're going to have to ask that again. That's a great question. Let me think. Yeah, okay. Do you want to ask again?
Yeah. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Alex Hormozy.
Okay. What's one daily habit that has had the biggest impact on your success?
No calls before midday.
No meetings?
Yeah.
Okay. what's your go-to way to reset when you're feeling stuck?
A heavy workout.
Ooh. If you had to start over from scratch today, what's the first thing you would do?
Post a YouTube video.
Absolutely amazing. So where can people find you?
They can find me on my Instagram, which is soul.hide. They can check out the Free Thinkers Club through that. And they can also find me on Instagram and they can also find me on YouTube by just typing in Soul Hide. I'm all over there.
I love that. Would you like to send a message to your followers or to anybody viewing this podcast that,
I would just like to say thank you very much for taking your time to listen. And I think we've had some amazing conversations. We've had some very controversial topics come up, but that's the fun of it, right? And the fact, almost going back to it, the fact that we get to do this as our living is
absolutely
because we pursued our passion. And I know because you're watching this and you've got to the end of this podcast that you are someone who's interested in that. So congratulations on being someone who's interested in living their best life.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Joy. I think this was my favorite conversation, like generally my favorite conversation. I think we have provided so much value. So yes, that's everything. So thank you so much for watching, or thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.